Open. There, riding forth. O God, it's so beautiful. The Lord reigneth. The Lord has reigned. The Lord shall reign forever. The Lord reigneth. The Lord has reigned. The Lord shall reign forever. The Lord reigneth. The Lord has reigned. The Lord shall reign forever. The Lord is God. 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 Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
You're in fear of ghosts or shit like that. There's a lot of people out there who watch these ghost shows. They live in complete fear. They don't know how to handle any type of being from any dimensional, in this dimension or something they can't see. They're spooked.
Varying flood legends from all around the world, and how even secular historical scholars conclude that all of these varying flood legends derive from a common source which predates them all, we can see the historical plausibility of these events actually having taken place. Now, obviously, there is some debate on whether or not it was just an older legend or an actual event, but when we couple that understanding with all of the scientific evidence pointing to the possibility of a global flood, and all of the signs that seem to be present pointing to that, the idea that there was an actual global flood becomes a lot more plausible. Now, in addition to that, while doing research for this video, I came across numerous different not only flood legends, but creation legends, which seemed to overlap with similarities. So again, we are confronted with this dilemma. Are all of these similarities the result of just another legend which predates them all, or of an event that actually took place?
Like the idea of demons being ugly, and you can see that they'll say that when this demon appears before you, it's got this and this, and it's ugly, and it looks like this, and I'm telling you, these people are fucking retarded. They've never seen a demon once in their life. They have no intelligence. That's what a fucking angel looks like, all fucking freaky.
Oh, wait, stop. Angels in the Bible don't have wings.
What? No wings?
No angel wings. In fact, angels are often mistaken for people because they look like us.
Following orders.
I'm sure that many of you have probably seen this hieroglyph, and many of you have probably been led to believe through various shows like Ancient Aliens, for example, that these are actually depicting ancient light bulbs or some other form of electricity like a battery or something. But in actuality, this is depicting the Egyptian legend of creation.
This relief is not so mystical if you have a little understanding of Egyptian art and religious symbols. This is a variant depiction of the creation of the world in Egyptian mythology. The Egyptians believed that before anything else existed, there was a vast primordial sea of nothingness. They believed that the first thing to emerge from this sea was a lotus flower. This is probably because the lotus closes at night and sinks underwater. In the morning, it reemerges and blooms again. It was believed that the lotus flower then gave birth to the first god, who was often associated with the sun. This relief was done after the god Atum was merged with the sun god Ra, and thus became Atum-Re.
God loves you, God bless you, I love you, we shall die, die. The angels are fucking sick, ugly, following orders. They don't give a fuck about you or anybody else. If the order is to do this or that, and it's to fuck you in the worst way, guess what? Orders are orders, and they're coming right from...
Atum, the god who created everything else after this point, is actually represented by a snake. And yes, it is a snake in these reliefs, not light bulb filaments. You can actually see the eyes and other elements of a snake if you look closely. This is pretty standard Egyptian mythology, that the lotus flower came forth first, and then the first god Atum, who was represented by a snake. Well, what about this bubble surrounding it? I will quote an expert directly on this point. Quote, "Despite the variety of deities, the Egyptians conceived the origin of the world as singular. Only one god, Atum, was responsible for the emergence of the universe as a bubble of air in the vast, limitless, inert ocean and everlasting darkness of the undifferentiated primordial waters, none, that existed before creation. In other words, the universe came forth from the lotus in a bubble of air. The other elements of this picture back this interpretation up. The universal bubble is here being supported or raised up by the goddess Nun. Nun is the primordial waters, and technically it is she that raises up the lotus, Atum, and everything else. This pose of outstretched hands is one of the more common motifs for Nun, and she raises and supports the universe from nothingness. In some versions of the story, the sun god represented in these scenes is Khepri, who is represented as a scarab beetle. Atum and Khepri sort of traded off being aspects of Ra in Egyptian mythology. So in essence, in more common versions of this scene, you have Nun, the primordial waters, lifting up the solar barge of Ra for its first journey across the sky. And this explains why the exact same poses are seen in this creation scene at Dendera. They are also depicting Nun raising up the universe out of her waters. This idea is very, very common. You can see other images of Ra emerging from the primordial lotus as well.
Now there are a few things that I want you to take away from that last clip and keep in mind as we move forward. First being that the Egyptians perceived creation emerging from primordial waters, and also that a pocket of air was created. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward.
Better now with a shameful crown, seen the world through the eyes of a monster, and you're a liar. You're so on fire. Tear up the monster now. We've seen behind and watch it die. You're fooling no.
Allah will say to the angel of death, who remains? And the angel will say, O Allah, I remain, you remain, no one else remains. Yet then Allah will say, I created you for a purpose. You have fulfilled your purpose. You also die and you will die.